Mexico seems the third country targeted by United States military after Venezuela and Colombia, while United States ship Gerald Ford aircraft carrier U-turns a long way from the Adriatic Sea into the Mediterranean, Atlantic Ocean, and Caribbean. We should expect aircraft carrier Gerald Ford to arrive into Caribbean waters within a week or two. Venezuela's preparations against invasion continue highly monitored, including the mountains of Cerro Negro in Ávila, at the peak where you can see the Caribbean coast and the city of Caracas simultaneously. Defense systems are located on that strategic location, while the entire coastline continues to be heavily fortified, along with Isla de Patos and other locations in Sucre and del Tamacuro state, in close proximity to Trinidad and Tobago, which is increasingly becoming United States base of operations for offensive attacks into Venezuela. However, it is imprecise if Donald Trump is also targeting either Gustavo Petro or Claudia Sheinbaum, the presidents of Colombia and Mexico, as their support to Venezuelan sovereignty is not to the liking of Donald Trump's regime. Drug cartels is a vague expression that could mean anything, which is pressuring United States Congress and Senate to provide authorization, as Donald Trump might have to request such authorization. Aircraft carriers are clumsy, slow infrastructure that can be easily targeted by small Iranian boats, of which there are plenty in Venezuela. The effectiveness of plentiful Iranian-made boats was evidenced in recent Houthi Yemen attacks into other aircraft carriers that were significantly damaged and needed to return to safer shores. As targets of United States disseminate throughout the entire Latin American region, as Venezuela, Colombia, and Mexico are big countries, this lack of focus does not guarantee United States victory. While the long journey of U.S. ship Gerald Ford through various seas and oceans before reaching the Caribbean will provide Presidents Sheinbaum, Petro, and Maduro ample opportunities to design a unified, comprehensive Latin American and Caribbean strategy for deterring such invasion. Russian government of Vladimir Putin has not only helped Cuba and Venezuela, as it now is seeking to help Mexico and Colombia through urgent sending of helicopters and other arms equipment. We must remember that Russian economy, as it is imposed OFAC sanctions on its soil, relies significantly in arms sales, and Latin American countries are in a shopping spree for weapons to the benefit of Russia, while encouraging Latin American and Caribbean integration. As the rate of production of weapons of Russia is significantly higher than the rate of production of weapons of the United States, as time goes by, the combined firepower of Mexico, Colombia, and Venezuela together will approach United States firepower, which has been recently depleted in wars for Ukraine and Gaza. Gustavo Petro, in Bogota, assembled a massive gathering of his supporters at Bolivar Plaza, and he explained how the Constituent Assembly would be in effect shortly before the election of the new president of Colombia, meaning that next president of Colombia will need to rely on the new Constitutional Assembly that will be elected in Colombia during the next few months. While General Vladimir Padrino López of Venezuela was explaining how our sphere of influence has included Essequibo, Trinidad and Tobago, Venezuela, and Colombia. It is also noteworthy that Panama is also receiving United States military exercises as it prepares for aggression against its larger neighbors, Colombia and Venezuela. While Trinidad and Tobago wishes to harass Venezuela with the help of United States, Panama wishes to harass Colombia with the help of United States. Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines are debating whether United States military presence in their islands is appropriate. They are part of ALBA group of countries, while Bolivia has been expelled from ALBA as it does not disapprove of United States invasion into Latin America. The governments of Caribbean countries are increasingly harassed by the United States. Panama and Trinidad and Tobago have already fallen, and Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines might also fall unless ALBA quickly restores unity. Latin American unity looks increasingly tied to coordination between Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, and Brazil. On the domestic Venezuelan opposition, it has been noticeable that Leopoldo López has initiated his process for revocation of Venezuelan nationality, as he has supported United States invasion against his own country, while Maria Corina Machado will not receive a fistful celebration in Norway when she gets awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, as the adjudication of Nobel Peace Prize was made violating historical Nobel Peace Prize standards. Leopoldo López is comfortable in Spain, therefore revocation of Venezuelan nationality will not provide any immediate harm. His father, Leopoldo López Gil, is already a Spanish citizen, member of the Popular Party of Spain. Therefore, Leopoldo López will just use a Spanish passport rather than a Venezuelan passport. It is important to revoke Venezuelan nationality of anyone who is asking for invasion against their homeland, as they are accomplices of sheer death and destruction of 32 people who have already been killed in speedboats without due process, and those opposition members of Venezuela who have been asking for United States invasion will be personally accountable for the murder of any Venezuelan soldier who dies defending their country. That is high treason to the homeland. Meanwhile, oil and gas operations continue functioning normally. PDVSA continues business as usual, and focus should soon shift toward an even greater alliance with Iran and Russia regarding oil trade in currencies such as the Chinese yuan, the Indian rupee, or the Russian ruble. The Venezuelan gas fields, which are sought by Trinidad and Tobago for exploration for free, should be allocated to international companies from countries such as Vietnam, India, Barbados, or Grenada, along with PDVSA, if Trinidad and Tobago does not comply with the Venezuelan request by Vice President Delcy Rodriguez that gas exported from Venezuela to Trinidad and Tobago must be paid for. Narratives are becoming boring. It's been 2 months and a half since this harassment into Venezuela and most recently Colombia and Mexico has started. The Donald Trump administration fails to provide evidence of the necessity of such war. International public opinion is distracted with wars in Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Iran, and Gaza, while the Caribbean is suddenly becoming another source of conflict. Trump is not being taken seriously anymore, and the slow movement of aircraft carrier Gerald Ford, clumsily and slowly traveling across the sea, all the way from the Adriatic, instead of sending another aircraft carrier from the United States, which is much closer to the Caribbean, is posing questions. Are all other United States aircraft carriers in reparation, or is it a sheer photograph of a big clumsy equipment, what is needed to support the war on drugs narrative? Guyanese fishermen have been reported missing on Suriname waters, and it is believed they might have been shot as well by the United States, while governments of Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana prefer to let their citizens die rather than forfeit their obligations to United States aggressive intentions against Venezuela, Colombia, and Mexico. It would be wise that CARICOM continues zone of peace negotiations and request Trinidad and Tobago government to clearly explain what will happen, as most countries are convinced that Trinidad and Tobago will start a war against Venezuela, and theoretically Venezuela could retaliate in invading Trinidad and Tobago or fighting United States forces deployed there, which might actually catch the attention of China or Russia whenever they seek to enter the conflict. This has all the ingredients for sparking World War III. Initially, World War II was Germany against Poland, and then other countries entered the war. So initially we would see a war between Trinidad and Tobago, United States, and Venezuela, to which would be added Colombia, Mexico, Russia, Iran, and China. Venezuelan petroleum resources will not be given up to United States. Fascist Venezuelan opposition leaders will continue being revoked their Venezuelan nationality, and they will not be able to seek political power, as patriotic Venezuelans are determined to fight for as long as it takes. United States committed the mistake of not taking care of its relationships with Latin America for too long. It is too late, and Latin American countries have already found more convenient terms of trade with China, Iran, and Russia, which are finding in Venezuela a suitable seeding ground for expanding Eurasian influence in the Caribbean and Latin America at the expense of clumsy United States arrogance. Donald Trump is traveling to Asia with a first stop in Japan, and it is likely that he will be confronted by the Japanese Prime Minister and the Brazilian President, with whom he will meet shortly. Small countries can make a difference. In the European Union, Belgium was able to block the pretension of larger European countries of stealing Russians' assets, while Hungary and Slovakia resist cutting their oil and gas ties with Russia. The OFAC sanctions against Russian oil have increased price of petroleum, which actually benefits Venezuela as it provides a higher cash flow for our military purchases of Russian weapons. United States does not seem to realize that its time has already come and that most countries in the planet have decided that the United States is our common enemy, just as Nazi Germany was the common enemy during World War II. And this World War III against the United States will end up with United States defeat, while supporters of Donald Trump Nazi regime will be remembered later on in history as Nazis 3.0. As worldwide situation begins clearing up after so many months of Trump-produced world chaos, each country will slowly shift into new alliances and new strategies. In the case of Venezuela, we shall continue relying in ALBA and improved union with Titans, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. Oil production will continue pumping thanks to Chinese investment, and a completely new business model will be proposed for Dragón, Patao, Mejillones, Río Caribe, Dorado, Lorán, Cocuina, Plataforma del Tana 3, and Plataforma del Tana 5 gas fields, which will all be available for international investment in conditions that will not necessarily require any OFAC license. Venezuela will be able to develop its gas fields in a sovereign manner, and there will be plenty of gas for plenty of international operators from a number of countries from the global south. The gas market of Caribbean countries and European countries is highly attractive, and new sources are needed to be untapped, and Venezuelan offshore gas fields offer a perfect opportunity to be shielded from United States sanctions. We will monitor how Russia will circumvent sanctions on its Rosneft and Lukoil companies, as PDVSA will likely act accordingly. Russia is conducting a business feast in Caracas, Venezuela, which will probably target tourism, arms sales, and petroleum joint ventures. As the Venezuelan business community realizes that doing business with the United States is complicated, all countries are harassed by tariffs and sanctions, while visas to entering United States tend to be revoked as political retaliation rather than business considerations. Gustavo Petro, President of Colombia, has been quite vocal on usage and weaponization of United States visas and OFAC sanctions. While Nicolás Maduro is gathering impressive support within Venezuela, as he is often seen with large crowds in various areas of the country. He was seen in the state of Portuguesa and La Guaira state during the last few hours. Not long ago, Maduro was an unpopular president, and he seldom left the palace, as there were fears for his life due to United States capture order of $50 million. But recently, President Nicolás Maduro is traveling all over Venezuela, suggesting that nobody cares of the $50 million price tag. And similarly, Minister of Defense Vladimir Padrino López and Minister of Interior and Justice Diosdado Cabello, worth $15 million and $25 million respectively, continue uneventfully their preparation for United States invasion in a highly professional and assertive manner. No such leadership is being seen anywhere in the United States military, which is conducted by joke Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, who deploys cynic and costly deployment of United States aircraft carrier Gerald Ford in risk of being targeted by Iranian speedboats with missiles fired from Venezuela. Venezuela has become a regional military power in the Caribbean. Our ALBA alliance remains our strongest political association in spite of Bolivia's suspension And we would like to thank the populations of Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines for pressuring their prime ministers to consider not providing their islands as shooting spaces for radars of hostile United States military force against Venezuela, Colombia, or Mexico. Statement from the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, ALBA. The member governments of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, ALBA, have decided to suspend the far-right government that will be established in the plurinational state of Bolivia because of its anti-Bolivarian, anti-Latin American, pro-imperialist, and colonialist conduct is not in accordance with the principles of this alliance. This suspension does not affect the permanent, affectionate, and supportive ties we maintain with the Bolivian people, with whom we will continue to work and support their development and well-being. We express that the public statements issued against Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua by the far-right government are completely unacceptable, as they disregard the principles of respect, sovereignty, and cooperation that underpin the integration of the peoples of our America and the founding values of the alliance. The ALBA countries have supported the Bolivian people since their integration, contributing to historic achievements in education, health, and economic development. More than 1 million people have been educated through popular education programs. More than 3 million Bolivians have been served through the Miracle Mission and other health programs, significant investments in various sectors of the economy, and a prominent international presence defending Bolivarian principles and Latin American unity. Thanks to this alliance, the voice of the Bolivian people has resonated strongly throughout our America and the world. We reaffirm our commitment to continue working alongside the Bolivian people, defending their rights, their social and economic development, and ensuring that the alliance continues to be a space for solidarity, cooperation, and justice. This suspension measure will remain in place while the political conditions in Bolivia are evaluated, with the aim of protecting ALBA's founding principles and ensuring that the organization continues to be an instrument of unity, sovereignty, and social justice for all the peoples of our America. Caracas, October 24th, 2025.